Hello and welcome to MMA Crips Fighting Talk. On today's show, we'll be discussing the action, or lack of action, from last night's BAMMA 15, as Colin Fletcher, Leon Edwards and Gazim Solani all picked up victories. Joining me on today's show to discuss BAMMA 15 will be, as always, Mr. Greg Marshall. Welcome to MMA Crips Fighting Talk, Greg.
Alright man, how's it going?
Not too bad, Greg. Okay, Greg, we might as well start with the fuck up on the live stream from last night's BAMMA. Well, on the Colin Fletcher fight, you mentioned before this recording that the stream went off for you when Colin was coming out on the horse. I actually managed to watch about 2 minutes of Colin's fight, and then all of a sudden the stream went dead for me. But there was a lot of shit on Facebook last night. There was guys kicking off with the BAMMA crew. BAMMA was posting, you got to like the page, and then you got to refresh the page. Everybody was doing that. They were saying it's still not working. And then BAMMA was saying, make sure you're on a laptop, make sure you're on a PC. Everybody was on a laptop, everyone was on a PC. Still no BAMMA card, and a major fuck up. But basically, Greg, this all started from the Channel 5 Star TV deal that went down, about a week before the fight, which was pretty crazy. I noticed at the weigh-ins as well, Greg, that there was still they still had the Channel 5 Star logo on the at the weigh-ins at the back, so that's pretty fucked up. First of all, Greg, what do you make of the TV deal going tits up?
I didn't actually see what happened to cause it to go down. What do you know what it was?
I do not have a clue. I'm assuming the only thing I can really think of is maybe Channel 5 Star were either not happy with the ratings in the last few shows, or they maybe wanted to trim the fights down on the fight card. Because if you notice, Channel 5, they like to put about 2 fights on, but recently we've been getting like 3 or 4. So it's got to be one of those 2 for me, Greg.
Yeah, like you're probably right. It maybe has something to do with the ratings, but the one thing I thought it might have had to do with is the UFC. Because the UFC were on Channel 5 for the Gustafsson-Manawa fight, weren't they? And the UFC usually, when they go to a network, demand that they're the only MMA show on the network. So I don't know if the UFC have went in there and said, right, if we want to be the only show in town, basically. But why? Even if it was not that, if it was to do with ratings going down, if it was to do with cutting the show, why did they wait till a week before the show for this to happen?
Well, I want to bring something up here, Greg. When I was watching the live stream last night on Colin Fletcher's fight, there was only 1,400 people watching.
Yeah, that's fucking terrible. But then I never even knew it was like that until last night. I never even knew it was on the stream until last night. I assumed it was going to be. I hadn't seen a lot of the stuff about the TV thing getting cancelled, and I thought, oh, they must have another deal somewhere else. And I stupidly waited till the last minute to try and find out. And
well, it was supposed to be on the Extreme Sports channel, but it was that fucking African fighting stuff.
Yeah, I seen you saying it was on the Extreme Sports channel, but there was nothing there. That Extreme African show, that's been on there quite a lot recently, but I've never seen anything about them being on there other than what you'd said.
Well, 1,400, Greg, that's terrible. That's like a demise of a company. That really is. And Channel 5, let's be honest here as well, Greg. Channel 5 just had UFC on there with Jimmy Manuwa and Gustafsson. So you go from having the UFC on and all these views, probably 500,000, I think it was, and then, what? I do not know how many the last time I got, but I was seeing 1,400 or something for the Colin Fletcher fight. That's a big fucking difference, Greg. It's not like 20,000 difference. That's like 400 and odd thousand. It's a massive difference.
See, again, it could be down to BAMMA as well, because the quality of their shows, not the quality of the show. The quality of the show seems to be quite good still, but the name value of the show has dropped a lot. I think they went from the early days having a lot of big names on their events, to now having pretty much guys that only hardcore fans know.
Well, it's like they're going through a transition of trying to create their own new stars. But for me, there was 2 main fighters for BAMMA last night, and they was off fighting for other companies. There's Max Power Nunes and there's Paul Semtex Daly. Max Nunes was fighting in Russia, and Paul Daly was fighting kickboxing in Italy. But is that looking like a sign that they are in financial straits there, Greg?
Well, there's definitely something wrong because Paul Daly is arguably one of the most talked about guys in MMA outside of the UFC. Anytime he's got a fight or something happening, all the main media sites are talk about him. There's a story about him. There's somebody talking about him somewhere. Like I never even knew Daly was fighting last night until I went on to a couple of the sites this morning, and there you go. Every one of them's reporting on his kickboxing fight last night. You need that guy fighting. That guy generates views to your show. BAMMA need him fighting. They only have a few events every year. He could realistically fight on every card.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He wants to keep active, obviously.
Exactly. Daly's always been an active fighter. He likes to fight regular as he can. So why not have him fight on every card?
Well, for me, Greg, I personally think they need to get Paul Daly back. I don't care if he's too much money. Just take the risk. Put him in a title fight and just keep bringing these international names over. I don't care if it's fucking Dennis Hallman, fucking Ben Saunders. They should have nabbed Phil Baroni when Phil Baroni was a free agent. They should have got Phil Baroni. You're telling me that people wouldn't have tuned into Paul Daly versus Phil Baroni?
Oh yeah,
that would be
definitely.
Fucking huge.
That's it for me. I think they need a couple. They need to have names on the show to at least garner a bit of interest in their event. See, in the past, that's what they did that was made them a bit special over here. Was the likes of Cage Warriors and UC MMA and shows like that. They never really had a big name at the top of the card, or a couple of big names at the top of the card to sell the event. BAMMA always had that, and that created a bit of interest, and it made them kind of unique over here. Whereas now, I think Cage Warriors are slowly, not so much putting on that kind of event, but they're putting on the event that BAMMA looked to be going towards, which isn't going to work because Cage Warriors have got a huge roster of fighters. They put on events almost on a weekly basis at times, and they're arguably probably the third biggest organisation in the world just now, behind the UFC and Bellator. I think they're right up there with WSOF and ONE FC. They're right alongside them just now, if not starting to slowly pass them by. And I don't think BAMMA can compete with Cage Warriors unless they start putting on unique shows with big names at the top of the card.
Well, it does. It all comes down to business skills, really. Marketing and, it's like, right, if your money's tight now, I'm going to pretend that I'm in charge at BAMMA. Right, my money's tight. Okay, we just lost our TV deal. It's okay, let's just regroup a second. We've got a load of good young fighters. Right, let's start bringing these guys in on a main card. But here's where BAMMA are going wrong, Greg. They're not doing it on a regular basis. Like Max Perry-Nunes, he dropped down to middleweight for his last fight. Looked good. Got a good solid victory. He was undefeated before the Jason Jones fight at light heavyweight. Now, you don't let that guy fight elsewhere. You've got to be consistent with him. You've got to have him back on your card. Mansour Barnawi, another good young fighter. This guy can't command too much money. Bring him back on your card. Don't let him sit out for a card. He's your champion. Get your fucking champions back. Maybe they could do with dropping the British belts too for the time being. Do that for a smaller show possibly. BAMMA UK or something. Get your UK fighters on there, the up and coming talent. But obviously that it's like building blocks. That's obviously later down the line. But when your show's starting to fail and it's doing bad and well, I wouldn't just say that other companies are overtaking them. They're suffering anyway, regardless of these other companies. I believe they're suffering financially. Now, what you have to do here, you always work down from a main event, Greg, don't you? Your main event's your selling point.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like you were saying, get a big headliner, like Paul Daly versus Phil Baroni or whatever, yeah? Then, that French kid last night, the Fire Kid, 20-year-old champion, bam, you got to stick him on there. Now, you got to look at some other good featherweights about. There's tons of featherweights. BAMMA are good at scouting. Build this kid up, market the kid. This phenom from France, from Paris, France. Totally well-rounded. You just show the footage on this guy, His fucking slick reversal last night. And that mounted triangle, just beautiful. You just show a bit of footage on this guy. Get a good few interviews for him. Really post him about. Post him about your Facebook. Post him about your Twitter. BAMMA got a big Twitter following. Just post him everywhere. Post his interviews. Build this fight. Get somebody in. who don't like him. Maybe a rivalry. I don't have a fucking clue. Like the UFC, they managed to save the Daniel Cormier bout, and they bought in that wrestler who didn't like him, and well, the wrestler who made him cry, and
Yeah.
that match wouldn't have happened in a million years, but they marketed it. That's what they did. They sold it to the fans, and I fucking couldn't wait for that fight. And it was a good fight too. BAMMA can do this. They really can, because they have the talent, and they don't need the money for the talent they've got. But they do need two headliners, and they do need to fork out for them if need be. But if you can't fork out for them, try and be smart. Get somebody with a name. They've done it over the years in the past. They got Matt Veach, and whatnot. Even Tom Con Watson's looking shaky. If Tom Con Watson loses one more fight in the UFC, he's done deal. Keep close tabs. It's Dan Hardy. Dan Hardy can't fight no more. But
he could fight in the UK.
In the UK he could fight, not in the UFC. Do you know, if you just took the risk and took the chance, end of the day, you're not doing nothing wrong. Dan Hardy's the one who, he's willing to fight and put his health on. If he's willing to do that, because he's been fighting in the UFC all this time with this illness and it's not affecting him, take the chance. Sometimes it's about taking a few gambles, and take a gamble on Dan Hardy. Just anybody. I'm really disappointed in Phil Baroni. Phil Baroni is a massive name. Whatever way you cut it, look at his record. They should have got somebody like him. Instead, Bellator snatched him up. Now he's going to be wasted on the Bellator undercard. You had Melvin Glad just released. Well, probably a bit too pricey, Melvin Glad. I wouldn't even attempt to try and get him, to be honest with you.
I think he may be a bit too pricey.
Yeah. Fuck it, they can't get Paul Daly. I don't think they're going to get... well, then again, I wouldn't assume Paul Daly commands more money than Melvin Glad. To be honest with you, I'd say Melvin's a bit more dearer. But there's always guys from the UFC, especially the Ultimate Fighter. There's guys like Michael Wooten. Where the fuck's Michael Wooten now? You know what I mean? There's guys like Valentino. Valentino's coming back. There's Che Mills. Che Mills coming off 2 losses. You could build these guys back up. They've got big names in the UK. Build these guys back up. Give them a chance. People on losses, whatever. Just people know these guys. And
there's always good names outside of the UFC that you could use to help. Even if they're not a prospect to fight more than once, but a big name just to help sell one event and maybe sell a good fighter that's opposite them in the cage.
I think we can both agree here, Greg, that BAMMA have been recently, they've been putting a good fighter versus a nobody, or like a fighter like a good up and coming fighter versus somebody nobody gives a shit about. And sometimes what BAMMA do is these fighters are good. These fighters who they're getting, they're actually really good, but nobody gives a shit because they don't know who they are. Take Gazim Solani, right? Ollie Thompson, everyone knows Ollie Thompson. This guy, apparently, well, I didn't, because obviously we didn't see the fight because the stream went dead, but apparently kicked Ollie Thompson in the face, or hit him, rocked him, and then choked him out within 18 seconds. Now we know who Gazim Solani is, and instead of not putting him on a card now, bring this guy back. This guy just beat Ollie Thompson. You know what I mean? They can do a rematch. Ollie Thompson, I got caught, he got lucky. Gazim, you can build this guy up now. So you've got a choice. You can either put Gazim in against someone like James Mulheron I've just interviewed, really good fighter. He said he would have been interested in fighting on BAMMA. They could have got him. Yeah, they could have got him so cheap. Phil DeFreeze, another one. They could put Gazim in against him. The UFC fucking killer or something, let's take out all these UFC names. What's his nickname? The Armenian Psycho or something like that. Something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But build off this guy now, and I just feel like BAMMA don't. They make a guy and they don't feed off it. They take this guy who nobody knows about, like Mansour Barnawi. Yes, he's a bit dull. Yes, he can't speak English. Yes, he doesn't have the personality, but he's got talent. Fedor
didn't know. Beast in the cage.
Fedor didn't know how to talk, but look at him. He went to be one of the best fighters in the world. People want to see the action, and I'll tell you another one, Greg. Now, Ali Arish versus Ryan Scope. That was a good fucking fight. Not only did it turn out to be a good fight, but in terms of skill, Ali Arish is a very gritty veteran from Manchester. He's from my area, and Ryan Scope, what an up and coming fighter he is. Did you watch his fight against Luke Newman, where Luke Newman tagged him, then he came back and triangled Luke Newman?
Yeah, I was impressed with him in that fight.
Fuck.
That was a really good fight.
BAMMA needs to keep hold of this kid now.
I only caught bits of his fight last night. The kids were running about, so I didn't really get to watch much of it. Looked a very close fight from what I kind of did see of it. They
need to bring this guy back. There's Carlos Famola. He's lurking around these smaller shows fighting nobodies at the minute. Bring this guy back in, There's Biola Omayele. this guy, he's a good fucking middleweight, you know. Well, I think he's
Yep.
down to welterweight now. He shifts between middleweight and welterweight. But another good fighter who's a hot prospect. Did you see him on the smashes? He broke that guy's leg with a leg kick. He's fucking vicious. Yeah, he's got a bit of work on the ground to do, but if you matchmake him correctly, you know. But that's what I mean. They can bring all these, they can bring these name guys in on a decent budget. They can build up guys like Ryan Scope, and you know, another one I want to talk about here, Greg, is obviously Colin Fletcher. Where did he go with this guy? Because yeah, Tony Hervey was a good kickboxer, but you know, what did he do with Colin now? Because you know, to me, Ryan Scope looked more impressive last night. He come out of it better.
Colin Fletcher got notoriety on his personality more so than his fighting. I think he's a solid fighter, but he never looks all that impressive really. And losing the last fight and then last night, I again never seen it, but I've seen it was a split decision. So I'm kind of assuming he couldn't have been all that great again last night. So you can only live on your notoriety for so long. If you lose or you don't look good, then your name value is going to drop pretty quickly. And all I can assume is I'd imagine BAMMA will be paying him probably quite a good bit of money because he's their only real name there just on these cards just now. And do they keep paying a guy money that's not performing great? It's I would not be surprised at all to see Fletcher move on actually now and maybe fight for Cage Warriors because he's been a little less than impressive recently.
And I think they need to fuck Frank Trigg off. I like Frank Trigg, but how much are they paying this guy?
Yeah.
No.
Did they need Frank Trigg to do commentary? How much are they giving him to come over and do that when they could just have a local guy doing it?
They're going to put him up in hotels and whatnot. For the amount they pay for Frank Trigg to come over, they could get a pretty good fighter on.
Well, you're not telling me they couldn't get Brad Pickett for less money.
Exactly.
It just takes a little bit of that. As good as I like Frank Trigg in that, but is he worth what he's bringing? Probably not, especially when you're only streaming online.
If anybody from the BAMMA offices are going to be listening to this, you know, our apologies. We didn't mean to do such a negative show on you or any like hardcore BAMMA fans. You know, we're not trying to rip into the company or nothing.
No, we want the company to thrive, to get better.
Yeah, we want them to succeed. We're just basically what we are. We're just a couple of fans giving our opinion and just, you know, like we would any time, you know, like behind closed doors at the bar. We're just discussing how we felt about BAMMA last night. I was going to literally talk about the fights, but we just seemed to, you know, discuss if BAMMA's going to go under, basically. And, you know, so we've discussed now, Greg, that we think that BAMMA's in trouble financially. We discussed a couple of ways around where they can get themselves out of this trouble, assuming they are in trouble. I think they're doing a good job. I'd love for them to stick around, Greg, but ultimately, in a year's time, do you see BAMMA still being here?
No, I don't. I think they'll be gone in a year.
Okay, from MMA Crips Fighting Talk, thank you for watching.